What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. OG here, and you are taking a look into the Team Pass for FC, a newer addition to the game, especially the premium version, which they added after they already had the free version. Now, what you have to understand is, if you're only playing FC, this might not seem like a big deal to you. You might see the shapeshifters Kaká and Leao at the end of the premium pass, the several other players you get along the way, as well as evolutions, different player picks and things like that, and say, why would I spend $9 with EA Player, $10 without it? However, if you were to leave FC and you were to play both UFL and eFootball, the two other major football games, and I know some people say major football games in quotation marks, and you may be right to do that because FC is still the best game. UFL and eFootball can't touch them. However, it is still good for EAFC to have competition. It drives EA Sports to give us the best of the best in both gameplay and content because they don't want to risk losing players. So even if you don't play the other football games, you only play FC, you should be rooting for those games because it only benefits you. Not only that, but it is nice to have some variety. These different football games actually offer different ways to play football, different tactical approaches, different strategies on the pitch, right? You have the more arcade route, you have the more AI-driven route, you have the more realistic route. All of the games could bring these different elements and offer a very different experience when you play. Now, is that exactly the case? Absolutely not. That's why I said in quotation marks as far as eFootball and UFL being major games, just because they haven't really crossed that barrier. I think eFootball is close, and they definitely have a huge player base, especially over in the Asian market. However, they're lacking in some major areas to make it viable, to even call it a competitor to FC. But with all that being said, there are still some things that you could take from eFootball and even a little bit from UFL that could, improve FC. And so, for instance, my experience playing both games was excellent because I got to see firsthand some of these things that I wish FC would add, first and foremost, but also I got to see some things that make FC actually the best game that it is. And no matter if you liked what you saw on the pitch in UFL and eFootball or not, you would still be wanting for more content. You would be wanting for more modes. Whether it's eFootball and all of their legendary players that they do very good. They do better than FC in the sense that they make their legendary players more true to life. And you can't help but to say, why isn't there a draft mode? With all of those amazing legends that they do so well creating, you would think that they would be jumping at the chance to offer a draft mode because it could be absolutely huge in eFootball, but there's nothing of the kind. Or when you play UFL and you see that they're lacking big time on player variety because they don't have any legendary players, but what they do have is the skins, and what they could do is different versions of players through these skins, just like FC does with all the different promos that update the different players, a shapeshifters type of thing where players are in different positions. They could add different skill sets, and they do nothing of the sort. So if you never played these other games, if you only play FC, there's sort of a spoiled brat mentality because there is so much within the game that the players don't appreciate just what they have. Once you play eFootball and or UFL for a sustained period, you truly realize how much FC has to offer, how much there is to do, to the point where some players in FC even wish there was less because it gets to be overwhelming. They feel that FOMO, fear of missing out, all the time and feel like they just can't keep up with all the objectives, all the SBCs, all the different content. Whereas in UFL and eFootball, they are begging for more content, more modes to play, better rewards, all of it. They barely get anything, and it's so easy to get burnt out and bored of those games because of the repetitive nature, since there is not much variety. A prime example would be the weekend modes. In FC it's called Champs, in UFL it's called Showdown. eFootball, they don't have one. This has become a staple and sort of just considered a part of the game in FC. You would never even think about not having a Champs in FC. And obviously UFL was smart to add their own version of this because they saw how much success FC had with Champs. eFootball, who knows what they're thinking not to have a consistent mode that goes every weekend like FC and UFL do. It's insanity. They have this test your limit thing, but literally in the couple months I spent playing eFootball, I played one of these events. So you can't at all compare it to Champs or Showdown. But let's talk about Showdown and UFL. You get done playing, where by the way there is no overtime and penalty kicks, and ties don't give you any points. So if you play for a tie, you essentially wasted your time. The game is just canceled out. And to have to get 15 wins on the dot, which is how Showdown is, you don't get points along the way. You just have to hit the number 15 before you lose 5 games. Think about how much added time ties add, to where all that work to get a tie could be a great game. You just played an even opponent and ended up even and feel like you get nothing from it because you don't. It's a total joke. And these type of mistakes are made all the time, especially the rewards in UFL Showdown. That is where, when you compare Showdown to Champs, FC takes the cake with a first round knockout. And as I said earlier, you see these type of mistakes all the time in both UFL and eFootball that show why FC is and has always been the king. But once again, if you are just playing FC and you see these rewards, it is nothing special to you. Maybe if you remember the rewards before the big update, how bad they were. Maybe if you remember how bad the pack weight was. They definitely updated that, and so maybe you recognize that and appreciate that. But as far as the rewards in general, most FC players definitely don't appreciate these rewards like an eFootball or UFL player would. I mean, even the rank, let's say 7 rewards you see here, they are ridiculously good compared to anything you would get in UFL and eFootball. And so if you wanted to truly compare FC to eFootball and UFL and see exactly how much better FC is overall, you could go as detailed as you wanted, or you could look at the most general sense and just see how obvious it is that FC is the best game and that we are lucky to have so much that we have as FC players. I mean, you could break it down as simple as on the pitch, which would be gameplay, and obviously you could go as detailed as you wanted with seeing why FC is the best, and then off the pitch, which includes things like game mode selections, team building, rewards after you play, such as in the division or league mode, whatever each game calls it. You play, you get to the end, you want your rewards. That is what you were looking forward to. And once again, eFootball and UFL failed to deliver in this category where FC shines. But without a doubt, a vast majority of FC players don't see these type of rewards, these type of things as benefits. They actually complain more than anything. When you typically see people open their rewards, they are unhappy with the value that they get from them. Now again, there was an update on the value of rewards after the big patch. However, people will still be caught complaining as opposed to realizing how much better these rewards are than the other games. Now, with that being said, this is or could be a slippery slope to go down, because on the one end, playing eFootball or UFL for a sustained period will no doubt make you grateful to have FC and everything FC has to offer, from modes to play to the rewards to the on the pitch gameplay. FC is the best. On the other end of it though, you don't want to give FC a free pass just because they're the best. For example, if there's 3 people that take a test, one person could be the best, but they got a 50%, which is always an F, right? The other 2 people, however, might have got a 30% and a 10%. So just because that person did the best doesn't mean they passed the test. It doesn't mean they did good, and that's pretty much where FC is. There are 2 main issues, particularly in the gameplay area, that FC must address before they can truly be called a great game, and that is the server delay as well as inconsistent gameplay from constantly adding new elements to the game on top of an extremely out-of-date server. So what you get when you go in the game is one game feeling good, the next game it feels like it's totally being messed with. I mean, you can't do a thing. So that's a combination, as I learned from Inception, of both the server delay and the inconsistent gameplay caused by an out-of-date engine. So by no means are you looking at FC going, wow, I'm so grateful because this is the best game ever. You're grateful because it could be worse, right? And that's it. But you still have to hold FC accountable, since these other two football games aren't at a level where, EA Sports has to truly worry. There's no doubt they're keeping an eye on these other two games. There's no doubt that they are laughing hysterically when they see the lack of modes, the lack of everything in those two games, right? But we don't want them to be laughing and saying, we're the best because these guys are terrible. We want them to be celebrating, saying, look at this product we're giving our player base. They truly have to love what we've put out, both gameplay-wise and off the pitch. So, with that being said, let me know what you think about all three football games. Which game or games do you play? And what do you love about any of those games? As well as what do you not like? There is so many different opinions when it comes to this. And for me, it always seems crazy to me when players say, UFL is the best game or eFootball is the best game. Now, I'm not dumb. This could easily be because those players can't compete in a skill-based game that FC is right now. And that's the crazy part, because a lot of FC players, what led to this video is that a lot of FC players will complain about the craziest thing that is like a non-issue in both UFL and eFootball, right? They're not even looking at certain things that FC could look at because they're so far ahead. So let's hope FC starts to dive in and really give us the very best football experience, so that we can have some fun doing what we love, which is play football, and play beautiful football at that. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, keep grinding, keep having fun. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.